wake up a little bit, because I know it's morning and you've been sitting here for a few. Let's put both feet on the ground and, yeah. Maybe your shoulders up over your hips, sort of. Sometimes mine are like about a foot in front of my hips. It might feel like they're behind you when you do that. Okay, head kind of up over the shoulders, not in front, not in back. And just kind of relax your jaw. Exhale all the stress that you are capable of exhaling. That'll take a lot longer than that, but we'll just give it a couple. Do another one just for fun. Oh my goodness, grad school. Why did I do this to myself, right? I'm paying good money to work for someone else for free. So let's inhale the arms up if that works for you. If you don't want to inhale your arms up, don't do it. And then shoulders down like this, way down. And one more up. And then maybe like a little flutter on the way down just for changing it up. So trying to keep the jaw soft, the corners of the mouth slightly up. We will proceed with the idea here of conscious use of self. Okay, so this is a process that we want to join in with you, that you're paying money to be here, we're here to serve you, and that is really in the development of your awareness of who you want to be as a social worker. And who, you know, for most of us, it's not like just a job over here. Social work's kind of who we are as a person. That can get a little confusing at times. But you're here to sort that out. Who do you want to be? What kind of niche in the field will you find? And as Anne mentioned, and Andy also mentioned, you're only in the field a very, very short time. And it's 60 days in the foundation year. For advanced standings who are hopefully here, it's 75 days. So when you think about it, like if you've ever had a job or anything over a long period of time, or you look back on when you started college or something, like 60 days into it, you didn't even know what was going on, kind of. Well, we stretch these days out over 30 weeks. And there's something that's supposed to happen in between, right? There's something that's supposed to be going on with you going to school and learning to think and learning to process. And one of my ideas that I share in a lot of my classes is that you're creating a filing system for where you'll put everything later. There's no way you're going to know everything when you graduate, and hopefully you probably never will know everything, because everything's always unfolding. It's a process. That's why we like the idea, trust the process, right? And assume goodwill. Assume people are not here to make your life miserable. Most of us come to social work because we think we want others not to be miserable. And it's funny, we have this weird sort of tendency to get a little miserable. I don't know. Maybe it's because we're interacting with it a lot. And so over that time period, there is space for learning. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. You're going to learn a lot of theories at school. You're going to learn skills, methods. We're going to talk about the values that weave through those ideas. We try to make it a science as much as possible, and we do research, and we look at large groups of ideas, and we teach you all these different skills about how to look at the work that you're doing. But in our opinion, in field, that's why we think field rocks, is it's where the rubber meets the road, right? It's where you are applying all those different aspects. And the only time to do that in is the now, in that moment. You know, there's not really a PowerPoint for how to make a decision in a moment. So we'll share ideas, we'll share theories. And this theory today that we're going to share with you is one wherein you are the subject of the theory. It's about your adaptation to this experience. And as much as possible, we want you to understand that we're co-creating this, that we're all in this together, and that your field instructors and the people associated with your agency get the same training. So we're not doing this to you, though it might feel like it sometimes. And we're here to help you understand from a conscious point of view what's going on with you. Because as Anne said, not anything is going to feel perfect, at least not all the time, maybe very briefly. And so if you can step back and take a little bit of a conscious look at the conditions and not necessarily have an auto-emotional response, but be aware of what you're doing, then we feel like that's the most effective way for you to be a learner and to use this time that you're paying to do. So the theory is called, well, it's really not, we call it the theory, the developmental theory. And that's kind of funny because, as you know, there's a lot of developmental theories. This is based on a book, The Successful Internship, which is, the authors are Sweitzer and King, and you all in your foundation classes, you have the first couple of chapters, and it comes up in week 7, there's an assignment in your integrated practice class. But if you want to get a jump on it, or you like what we're talking about today, you can read it early. And so it's available for you in Canvas. And in advanced standing, we gave you this in seminar in the supplemental materials in Canvas for field. So everybody has a copy of this. The Successful Internship was a book. It is a book about adapting to human service internships. And one of our old field coordinators found the book and said, this is really great. It talks about what happens when you go through something like this. So we've spent quite a bit of time over the years watching this play out. And with all the many theories that we study, we actually think this is a good one. We've thought it for a long time. And so we want you to be aware of what's happening with you and be able to name the stage and even talk to your field instructor about it. It's so hard. I want to move over here. Let's see how that works. Okay. So the way this learning theory works is based on John Dewey and David Kolb, and they're two educational theorists. And they have this idea that all of life can be something you can learn from. And we all hopefully agree with that. But at the same time, all of life is not educational. So you could be working at Walmart or working at Kmart, and you could probably learn the skills that we're trying to teach you in the classroom: how to be aware, how to ask an open-ended question, how to be a little bit more patient when somebody isn't moving at the pace that you want. You could learn that there. But what we are trying to provide for you is an educational experience wherein you get theories, you get methods, you get guidance, and then you have this opportunity to reflect. And the reflection is the key to the learning. It's not like you're just going to digest a bunch of theories and then you're going to walk out and be like, I think I'll use cognitive behavioral theory, and I'll splash it with a little bit of, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some other buzzword, but you know, you don't just walk out knowing how to do everything. What you're walking out with is an ability to reflect on how you did what you did and what you think might be yielded from that. And so Dewey and Kolb say Dewey really said this, 3 attitudes of learning. They're qualities, they're attitudes, they're not actions. One is open-mindedness. And the idea with open-mindedness is not like just this big open window that everything comes in. And you're all, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll take that idea. It's open, but it has a sense of being able to decipher what was old about it and what was new. You discard old ideas that don't work anymore and you let in new. But in order to be able to do that, you kind of have to have the humility of being here to learn. And the funniest observation that I've made about myself and others, many students over time, is that we pay money to come here to learn, please teach me, and then the very first thing you want is approval. I know it, right? I'm good at it, right? But isn't this the way you're supposed to do it? Because I've always done it this way. And so we all have that. We have this little ego thing where we're like, please validate that I'm good at this. And there's probably a good chunk of you that is good at it. But there might be something to learn. And so if you're open to the idea that you don't necessarily know, somebody else might have a good idea. You might even hear somebody else's idea and then decide you don't like that idea or it's not a good fit for who you are. It doesn't mesh with your values. That is all allowable, but you have to let it in. You have to be open. And a way to get there is having a wholehearted approach to the situation. And that's a pretty big ask. Come in with a whole heart. You know, and some of you are like, I haven't really ever done that. I'm more of a guarded type. I expect other people to come forward with their wholeness, but I keep mine private. Some of you might be like, oh yeah, I'm all whole all the time. Bring it. Oh, I'm trying to think of that little thing, YOLO. You only live once. So whether you're a garter or a YOLO or whatever, there are moments when you're fully there, and there are moments when you're stepping back. And so to be there, you have to wholly want to be there, to be inspired, to be excited to get up in the morning. And sometimes with field, we've heard stories, or some of us have experienced this with work or with internships or anything, that where you're in the car and you're like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I do not want to be there. That might come up. So we're not saying you have to be wholehearted every second of the day, but we want you to pay attention to whether or not you're able to be wholehearted about what it is that you're doing. And as Anne said, you might find by the end of this year, this is not what I wanted to do. You might need to explore what that is, where your passions are. So it's an awareness of how much wholeness you're able to bring. And then the last piece is the favorite, it's responsibility. So open mind, whole heart, and responsibility. You know, it's like nobody likes that too much, but it is kind of your responsibility to be a learner. You know, we can give you a lot of stuff, but if you don't take it in and own it and grapple with it and ask questions when you need to or express the need for help, then it's very difficult for us to do that for you. In fact, it's not possible. Sometimes we try. We'll try harder than you. Please, please, take responsibility. And you'll do that for your clients, too. That's social work type. That's how we are. I'm sure you really want a job, don't you? I know you want to get sober as much as I want you to get sober, right? one of the empowerment pieces that you will have a dual experience with is your own and learning how to do it for others. Because people have to own their own stuff. And so we have to learn how to facilitate people owning their own process, their own learning. And you can do that. You know, the reason we don't like to do this is we don't want to be wrong and we don't want to be bad and we don't want somebody not to like us. And that can be kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because if you would assume that you're likable even if you make a mistake, you think you like your clients even if they've made a mistake. Oop, yep, see? Please still like me. I dropped my glasses. Okay, oh my goodness. All right. So you have to take responsibility. Those are the premises. Open mind, whole heart. Be responsible for your own learning. Now we're going to talk about the theory, okay? So the top up there, anticipation, that's sort of where it begins. But you might be in different phases of this process at any time, right? So some of you are culminating whatever it was you were doing before you were starting this, right? You might be finishing your last hours at a job or changing your hours to make your life work, and you're anticipating starting field. Some of you, how many of you have already started? Good. So we've got enough of you to where you're already taking the steps. Some of you haven't started just yet, but in anticipation, you're wondering, what's it going to be? I hope I like it. You know, and when we do this with the field instructors, we ask for input, and we say, what do you think the students are wondering about? What do you remember wondering about in your internship? And they always say, will I be good at this? So that's probably, like I always say, Family Feud, top answer, will I be good at this? Will they like me? Will I like them? Will my supervisor know anything? Will I be smart enough for my supervisor to think I'm smart? You know, and I always say there's every end of the spectrum. We have the super overly confident, and they're like, I've already done this. When am I going to get to the deeper work? And then there's others of you that are like, if I don't see a client until April, that's fine. I'll shadow you. You know, so everybody is in a spectrum in there. You also hope you like it and that it's a good fit and that you like the clients and that they like you and that you can make a difference and that how nuts you are won't show up. So that they're like, she can't be a social worker. He is out there. So you're like, I gotta be professional, and I gotta be me, and it's gotta be passion, and I've gotta be a saint, and help everybody. So there's a lot in anticipation. Your whole hopes and dreams for what it is you're creating in your life. And what we found is when we do that, that gets momentum going, that got you here, you're happy to be here, and it's usually different than you thought it would be. Something about it's different. You were in Kentucky, you agreed to this over the phone, you Google mapped it, it said 20 minutes. It's not taking 20 minutes, it's taking 49 minutes, plus trying to find a parking spot. You know. I don't know if I like this drive. I don't know if I like the lady that I'm working with. I'm working at a school, I walk in, the secretary, administrative assistant, and the office person is not nice to me. I come in every day, hi, and she's growling. I'm the intern. Who are you again? I'm an intern here. They're not nice. They don't want me here. You're in a meeting behind closed doors, and your field instructor says something that is, I don't know, was that racist? Was that social work values? Was she making fun of the client? I don't think they're ethical. I do not. I am paying good money for this. She doesn't even know what transgender is. She did not put all the letters in that acronym. I think this isn't going to work. I think this isn't going to work. No, it's going to be fine. We call that disillusionment. And in the book, The Successful Internship, they made a newer version of it. And they call this phase exploration. And we toyed with moving along with the new edition. But this is kind of the fun of being a selective thinker and choosing theories that work for you, is we thought, you know what, that kind of discounts the sense of disillusionment that you will inevitably feel. And it might not be with anybody else. You might love the placement. They might be awesome to you. You think they are brilliant. The disillusionment is here sometimes. I thought I would like this. I don't like it. I thought I'd be good at it. I had a student say to me once, I've never worked with kids that don't do what you say. Right? So you might not be everything you thought you were, which is the deeper conundrum here, you know? So did you make the right choices, the right place? Are you good enough? Are your values right? Is your supervisor's values right, or whatever? And you get into this funk. Some of you will do it very mildly. Some of you might already be there if you've been at your internship for a little while. You're like, oh, it wasn't exactly what I thought, but I think it'll be okay, and you kind of talk to yourself. And I always call that the shower version. You get in the shower, you're like, I can't do it. And by the end of the shower, you go, it'll be fine. That's the shower version of disillusionment. And sometimes it just happens. It's kind of a blip in the road, and you deal with some of your adjustments, and then you step in with both feet. You go, knowing what I know now, knowing the reality of this, I'll do it. You know, I wish they had better food in the vending machines, but I'll live with it, you know. And you move on. But some of you will have deep, deep, deep disillusionment and everything in between. And sometimes on the extremes of that, it's deeper work that need be done. Like, we have found over time what draws people to help others, social work, usually has something to do with the help you needed or wanted or couldn't find for your family or your best friend or your brother, or maybe you were just one of those, the whole world is very broken. But it's usually a brokenness of sorts, and we have to sort of sort out what we're doing. So if my dad was an alcoholic and I want to work with alcoholics, right, we always bring that up as the example because it's kind of obvious. Like, oh, you know, gee, that makes sense. You know, or I was in a hospital when I was a kid and the social worker was great and really helped me, and I want to be a social worker. Sometimes it's like a direct dot to dot, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's kind of like you didn't know it. It was a blind spot. And your disillusionment could be very heavy. And you could feel like, I am very deeply confused. And if I tell somebody, then they're going to know. That I'm confused, and then they won't think I'm a good social worker, and I'm not going to get a good grade, and I'm not going to be a good human being, and I've spent all this money, and so I'll just sit with it. But when you sit with something like that, and it's very, very deeply upsetting, it starts to leak out somewhere. Because you're not built to contain that. You're built to release that and understand that, and especially if you want to be an effective social worker. You have to be able to put what's going on in here, over here sometimes, and at least know what it is and say, I'll get to that later, when you're working with other people, because you're trying to hold space for them. So it's a very intricate and strange process, this disillusionment, and it can be mild, and it can be deep, and it can be repeated. It might not be just this month. It might come up again later when you try something new or when something changes. So it's like this ability that we have to manage our emotional response and our sense of it. And what we found is the way to get through it is to name it, to confront it. The other funny thing about being a social worker is a lot of us like to confront other people about their stuff. And then when we get to our own, we're like, yeah, I'll eat an ice cream cone and talk about it later. So one, you have to talk to yourself about it and own it and know what you're conflicted about. And then, as Anne mentioned, you need to go to somebody who can help with the situation, ideally your field instructor. But if for some reason they're part of it and you're like, I can't say it, I know I should, but she's not going to get it, I can't say it, then you talk to your liaison. Or maybe it's just mild. It doesn't have to be a deep-seated wound. It can be like, she said that I was going to run groups on Tuesdays. I've been here 3 weeks, there's no group. You know, it doesn't have to be like, who am I and what are my deepest, darkest secrets? It could just be like, I don't like this. Talk to somebody about it, confront it. Hopefully your field instructor helps with that because they're aware that this may come up. Who's going to bring it up first? Will it be a problem if you bring it up? Well, if you're going to get a job ever, if you're going to have a life ever, if you're going to advocate for somebody ever, then you need to be able to say something that's hard to say. And so it's good practice and assuming goodwill, and people are here to scaffold your learning, both the people in the field and the people on our team to help you do that, then you can have that little bit of wholehearted courage to go take responsibility for how you're feeling and address it. If you don't address it and you get to April and you're like, on the evaluation, my field placement was a nightmare. No one should ever go there. You get the gist, right? That's not the most effective for you, for us. What if it was a nightmare and you have a very high tolerance for pain? You know, and we could have helped a lot earlier. Or what if the nightmare was you? Like if this was a consistent factor in the equation that it was very unpleasant all of the time, maybe it had something to do with you. Okay, so confrontation, it's a little scary. We can help you with it. It's helpful because once it's done, usually there's just a clarification. You might say, I really struggled with that. And your field instructor might say, everybody struggles with that. And you go, really? And then you feel better. Or the field instructor might say, I know you're anxious about the group starting, but we're waiting for the last person's intake to come through, and we're going to start it a week late. Sometimes it's just a little clarification. And our ideal for you is that you get through this rather swiftly. We don't want you to rush it, be like, I need to be disillusioned, I should look for something. Right? But there's plenty of contrast out there. You're here to sort out what you want and what you don't, and what you're good at and what you're not so good at. And so it's going to be there for you. And once you identify it and you own it and you confront it, we want to elongate this competence period. Competence means that it becomes more fun. It's more collegial. You're doing it because you're learning. You feel a little bit more comfortable in your own skin. You're able to learn. You're able to ask questions. if somebody gives you feedback, you're able to absorb it and critically analyze it rather than totally personalize it. Doesn't mean you won't sometimes do all of that, because it's a lifelong journey, this work. But it becomes more comfortable to be a learner and to try new things and to grow and to take responsibility. And we always say to the field instructors, at this point, they become useful to you. Because they put a lot of time on the front end in getting you up to speed, and this is the time when you're really taking on new projects, responsibilities, taking ownership. It should be fun, learning, challenging, and we want to keep that as maximized as possible. And like I said, sometimes in the middle of all that, a new loop of this will kick in. You've been doing great, you have your responsibilities, you know what's next, and then something new happens. Could you take that person to court for me? You'll be fine. What? What do you mean, today? I don't know if I'm dressed right. You're dressed fine. It's in 25 minutes. And you might go, whoop, real quick, all back to anticipation, disillusionment, confrontation. But competence is kind of where you want to return. You want to come back to a place of saying, I can consciously assess my reactions, what I'm questioning. I'm starting to name it. This is an ethical dilemma. This is just a skill or a technique question. This is all of it put together. I don't know what I'm operating by here, right? Theory, is it, what is it? I don't know. I took 12 classes, I'm in midterms. I've read 500 papers. There will be times where you're saturated and you feel a little bit out of sorts. But the ability to step back into that, oh, am I clenching? Am I resisting? Am I shutting down and getting defensive about what I need to know and to be right? Or can I allow in? Or allow myself to be imperfect? What a relief. You gotta work on it though. That's the thing. You can't let it slide by. Being a conscious creator of what's happening to you takes this mindfulness, and that's what we call in social work conscious use of self. And at the very end of the year, or maybe it's March, or maybe it's starting, early, late, you're gonna be wrapping this up. Those of you who are in your concentration year, you're gonna be looking for a job or a relief, a vacation. Those of you in your foundation year, in February, as you saw in there, we have the field fair. You'll start in February looking for your second year placement. And so you're wrapping it up. A field instructor said something very interesting this year in training. She said, I felt like the minute they started looking for their new placement, you hijacked the whole thing. All my student cared about was getting her interviews and getting into the next thing. So even though you might be starting anticipation for your next year of your life, you're also culminating there. And that means taking time to reflect on how it went. Was it a good fit? Is this the direction? Getting feedback from your supervisor. Usually supervisors are pretty good at, and we've heard in longitudinal data that what students appreciate most is hearing from somebody, usually the field instructor, what they did well and what they maybe weren't as natural at doing. And so this is a good time to get a sense of who you are, how it went, maybe owning that it is or is not the right spot for you in the field, and tying up anything responsibilities, right? So you don't go, like Andy said, you don't go, well, it's March 23rd, I did 600 hours. Adios, thanks a lot. I don't know what's gonna happen with those kids and everything. But I paid my money, my time is up, I gotta go. That isn't really a professional ending, a termination that yields, what you do next. Because how you end one thing is usually how you start the next, okay? So some of you will be like, I never want to leave. Can I stay here over the summer? I'll volunteer forever. There's nobody as good as me to work with these kids. And your agency might have to say, it's time to go. Adios, your liability insurance is done. Bye-bye. But you have to also look at how you do endings in this piece. Do you want it to be other people's fault if it wasn't a good experience? Is that something you kind of do? Or are you a lingerer? You know, I don't want it to end. That's the cycle. And what gets you through all of this is this idea of I am here to learn about me as an instrument of this work. That I am here to be a creator of what I envision myself doing in the world. And so I will be aware and be conscious and take a nap when I need one so that I am not a crabby pancake every day. Right? You know, because you work and you have field and you were homework and then you're like, I'm just not feeling very patient. When was the last time you slept? 3 days ago. Right? So there's all kinds of work here to be done. Balance is the key. Right? Letting yourself learn and grow and strive, but also backing off sometimes. So our hope is this will help you to be aware of this process. And we invite you to share this. When it comes up for you, share it with your field instructor. Hope that we really are here to assist and create with you this experience that you want to have. And we really sincerely believe that our students do amazing work out there in the midst of all of this. And that you contribute a tremendous amount to the positive flow of changing the world, and that's why we do it, because it's fun. It's fun, especially when it feels good. And if it's not feeling good, please work with somebody so that we can make it the best experience for you.
I don't know if Anne said anything earlier, but Kate, well, she did make mention that Kate has moved on to the professor side of our school. So you all are the last people who get to hear that wonderful presentation. So give it up for Miss Kate.